In this video, I'm going to go through the AI tech stack, and it's really important that whenever you're looking at an AI or automation program, you understand that it's not just the automation that you're paying for, or it certainly shouldn't just be the automation you're paying for. I think a lot of businesses that I speak to, they seem to think that AI is just OpenAI and ChatGPT and Claude and these things. When in reality, there are so many other layers that you need to take into consideration when thinking about an AI program or thinking about buying an automation. So I'm going to go through each layer, kind of just to give a real kind of high level overview of what things you need to think about, why it's important, and ultimately just give a really good overview of exactly like what you should be thinking about when you're thinking about AI and automation and how it kind of fits into your business. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to kind of draw on here, just easier to kind of, I guess, give it more visuals of what things look like. And I'm going to kind of have each layer going across the page. So as with everything in the channel, this is all about making sure that businesses and anyone that's watching are, they're making really good informed decisions about AI and automation, and not just buying the tools, but buying systems and outcomes, and they understand how like these processes actually fit into the business, rather than wasting loads of money on things that ultimately aren't going to work. So the first layer that we're going to look at, this is going to be our infrastructure layer. So this is kind of like where everything runs. This is this is your environment, okay? And without this, nothing else will work, okay? So what we have here is kind of let me just pull this up, make sure I've got this in the right place. Cool. So, and I'm just going to draw a quick square here to make sure it comes up. Yeah. So what we've got is going to be called infrastructure, and this is going to be things like your cloud environment. So if we just do infrastructure here, let me just go try to draw on this iPad at the same time as obviously trying to look into the camera. So we've got infrastructure here. Okay, cool. So this is our infrastructure. And what does this look like? So this is you're likely going to be on AWS, Azure, or GCP. So I run everything on GCP myself, but you'll likely have kind of one of these as your kind of main infrastructure. To be honest with you, it's probably most likely going to be either you're a Microsoft house or you're a Google house. I use Outlook or you use Gmail. That's just the way most businesses are run. The next thing within this is going to be things like your hosting. So when we think about infrastructure, hosting is going to be like your core applications and the core software you use in-house. So if you think about like CRM systems, if you think about OpenAI as a component of that, if you think about obviously your email is in there as well. So this is going to be kind of like your core applications, and this can be like HR, this can be CRM, this can be OpenAI, whatever it might be. Then we have within this, so I guess there's a few caveats with this, is that most organizations will run their infrastructure just with these 2 points here. Okay, you will either run it like this and this. Now, bigger organizations will have their own servers. They'll also have their own like GPUs. They'll also have VPCs. So VPCs are virtual private cloud as well. So like within the cloud, you can have your own private cloud network as well. So it's very, very unlikely, unless you're a massive FTSE 100 or Fortune 100 company, you're unlikely going to do this. But just for this example and showing you in the video, there's kind of these added areas here. Now, most businesses, small to medium-sized organizations, they're going to run everything through either Microsoft or Google, and then everything else is going to be on a third party. And those third-party pieces of software are going to have their own infrastructure, i.e. your Notion, HubSpot, whatever it might be. OpenAI and ChatGPT have their own servers and GPUs that you're going to be paying for, right? And you're going to be using theirs. So this is kind of like the first kind of layer within that. This is the foundation of your organization, right? Ultimately. And this is really, really important because if you don't, I guess if you don't understand like your foundations of your infrastructure and your foundations aren't reliable, they're not fast and they're not secure, AI and any automation you build is going to become slow, it's going to become glitchy, it's going to become unsafe, your data isn't going to be safe, your organization is effectively at risk, right? If you don't think about this at the really high level. So like I say, most businesses do not need servers, GPUs, or complicated cloud setups, right? If you use SaaS tools, which you probably will be, the vendor handles all of that infrastructure for you, okay? And like I say, most people are going to be on the Azure GCP, and you're going to be paying for software, okay? So the next thing that we're going to look at, and this is going to be our second layer, and this is going to be integrations and APIs. So we've got infrastructure, and this is kind of, let's just call this layer 1. And then our second layer is going to be integrations and APIs. So integrations / APIs. And this is going to be here. Now, integrations and APIs, this is, what's the best way to describe this? This is like the plumbing of your business. So this is making sure that you have all of your kind of systems are connected. This is making sure that your like one piece of software can talk to another piece of software. So if you look at any of that software that you're buying, so if you've got Notion or if you've got HubSpot, whatever it might be, they're likely going to have API keys, and those API keys, what they do is, they transfer data. Okay, so it lets systems talk to one another, and so an API stands for Application Programming Interface, and what that does is it means that your CRM system can talk to ChatGPT, and it can say, it can give data. It can say data like when was the last time this record was updated, when was the last note on this person, whatever. Again, it can be whatever, right? So integrations and APIs. So we've got your APIs here. We've also got something called webhooks. So we've got webhooks, and webhooks are automatic notifications. So when X happens, it tells system Y. It's different with an API because an API is kind of, imagine an API more like a doorway, and it's actually letting applications and talk to each other through a doorway, and you can go in and look around. Whereas a webhook is kind of almost like a text message or a phone call, and that's the best way to kind of think about it. And so you've got webhooks here. We've also got ETL pipelines. So ETL, and ETL stands for extract, transform, and load. So this is pulling data out of one system. It then cleans it, and then it puts that somewhere else. We also have ELT pipelines, so that's extract, load, and transform. So it's kind of the same idea, but cleaning the data after loading it into one of your tools, okay, like wherever that data is going. So we've got ETL and ELT. So ELT. So we've got these two here: extract, transform, and load. And load. And then ETL is extract, load, transform. Okay, cool. So we've got some ETL and ELT pipelines in there as well. And then we've got to think about the tools as well. So within any tools that you want to talk to each other are typically not going to be able to directly talk to each other. So if you imagine, let's say on here you have a CRM, and this is your CRM box. Let's just put CRM. Now your CRM isn't directly going to be linked to, let's say, your Gmail. Okay, you can't. There is no way of going into your CRM and linking it to Gmail. You have to have something in the middle here, and in the middle here is normally an automation platform, which I'll come on to a little bit more later. But typically, this might look like N8N, Zapier, or Make. So these sit kind of between here. This allows the CRM to actually talk to Gmail, okay? So we've got integrations and APIs. And obviously this is a hugely important part because it allows your automation or AI to connect with everything else, and it will basically sharing information, okay? So we've got integrations and APIs here. Cool. What we've then got, and this is layer 2. Let's just come in here and just do layer 2. Okay, and then what we've got is the next one is knowledge and data. Let's just get rid of that. So this is knowledge and data. So what knowledge and data is this is your business. So this is everything about your business. So this is everything that the AI needs to know, okay? And when you're running an automation, it's all of the interconnected pieces that make up your organization. So if you think about, again, we mentioned CRM, we've got training. Oh, that's terrible. So we've got CRM, we've got training. We might just have like process, sales, like anything that, anything that runs your business. SOPs, we might have like org charts. Okay, we might have, what else? We just might have like HR docs, things that, ultimately, depending on your size, that this is your entire database. And why is this important? Is because the AI and automation that you're going to build is only as good as the knowledge and data it has. Okay, and so if you want an automation to understand more around your training process for when you're onboarding new employees, well, the first thing you've got to look at is your training data actually any good? And if it isn't any good, then the output that you're going to get from the automation is also going to be pretty poor. And so what you need to think about, and this is why structuring it like this and looking at the layers is important, is because a lot of the times companies will want some amazing onboarding process, and they want you to automate that process, but actually they don't even know what the process is themselves. And everybody, and I've had conversations in the past where employees that are onboarded are going through all different sorts of processes. So how can you automate something when you internally don't even know exactly what that process is? So this encourages you, and this forces you to look at your business and say, well, what's good, what isn't good? And this is all before we've even built anything. We're already looking at things like the documentation and understanding what that looks like. We want to know what applications want to talk to each other, and in these 3 layers so far. So you can see that on the screen. Let me just put that there. So there we've got infrastructure layer 1, we've got integrations and APIs in layer 2, and knowledge and data in layer 3 so far. Layer 3. Okay, so the next thing we're going to be looking at. So once we've got these 3 set up and we've got that knowledge layer, what we've got then is layer 4, which is your AI models, and this is what typically most people will think of when they think AI. So this is our AI. Okay. Now, depending on what your business is and depending on what the outcome is you're looking to achieve with your model, with your system, or your automation, will depend on the model that you want. Okay, so if you think about things like you've got large language models, so very, very, ChatGPT, so ChatGPT, we've got things like Claude. Grok. These are all large language models examples. DeepSeek. So we've got our large language models there. Now, again, depending on what you actually want to achieve with that, what you will find is different models will perform different tasks. So you might want image generation, okay? You might want speech. You might want video. And so what we've got here is different models for different contexts. Now, it's unlikely you're going to find one model that's going to be able to do all of these very well. I'm sure in time it will happen, right? But at the moment, you need to figure out what it is you're looking to the outcome, and then we need to find the right model for you and your business, okay? Now, most organizations will not train their own models. They use them via API. So all we do is, within our automation and AI setup, we're effectively getting our model of choice, and these two will just integrate via an API key. Okay. Now, moving on to the next thing is your orchestration, okay, and your agents. So this is a really, really important part and part of this video, and I wanted to kind of get this across is because this is what most people will try and sell you, and this is why most automation doesn't work. So if we go orchestration and agents. Okay, cool. So typically this is where this is the workflow logic, okay? So this is and I mentioned it earlier, this is things like N8N, Make, and Zapier as well. Now, what you will likely see if you're looking at any automation is you will see lots of automation and AI agencies that will try and sell you the workflow. So all they're selling is they say, well, I can build you a workflow that answers your emails for you, or I can build you an AI agent that answers your emails, without actually taking into any account what that looks like with the rest of your infrastructure. So this is like one of the core areas when you're looking at orchestration, when you're looking at automation and AI agents. Just look at is anyone just building you a workflow, or are they actually looking at how that integrates with your business as a whole? And so all this is effectively that you can template this, right? You can go in, you can go to N8N, you can download templates of workflows. The problem is that most of the time those workflows won't work in your organization because it has absolutely no idea what software you're using, what your infrastructure setup is like, what your knowledge and database is like. So this is why I find quite frustrating in the market is especially within AI at the moment, is where people are just selling these ideas here. People are selling this orchestration, the orchestration AI agents, without taking into account actually what your business needs from that. And most of the time things don't need to be automated. And I've got other videos on this as well, that you don't need to automate everything. And so I would always encourage anyone understanding exactly what you're getting and how that's going to work in your business. Now, there's a few different things to mention here. Is that, or like the AI agent? So you've got a number of different things. You've got workflows. So workflows don't typically use AI, but they can, and I'll come on to that. So workflows, all that is you have one thing talking to another, and that's it. And it goes on like this, and it's based on logic, and you will get your outcome. So what all this is this one here goes, okay, cool, or this piece of software, whatever you're using, this might be your email. This piece of email talks to this CRM. That CRM talks to, your email again. Your email then talks to some sort of database or whatever it might be. I'm kind of making this up as I go along. But all it is anytime something happens, there is a logic that's embedded into each one of these stages or steps, and it produces you the same outcome every time. Okay, all it is it's good if it's like you just want the same thing happening over and over again. I don't know, you might just want someone to it might just be sending an email every morning to your team. Okay, that's the same email every single morning. It says something, whatever that might be. And then all this does is then give you your output. Okay, so when we have our output here, and it will just give you the same thing every single time, little yellow gold star. Now, what you also have is you can have workflows that embed or have within the workflow AI. Okay, so what we actually have, let's just remove that one. So what we actually have is a workflow that it has logic in it, but it also has, this is going to be our AI. Okay. Now, what this actually looks like is it will be logic. That logic will then go into the AI. So that feeds into the AI. The AI will then, it will be prompted and it will have its own description of what it's there to do. And that AI will help filter out to the next piece of logic. So imagine, it's probably a pretty terrible way of explaining it, but imagine if you you had someone email you. So the email comes in, so your Gmail trigger here at the beginning, someone emails in and it's a lead that gets put into a database. Then your AI agent can read the email or read the database, and it then might say whether that's a good lead, bad lead, what's their buying intent, and it might be able to then code up that lead for you based on the company or whatever it might be. And so the AI agent, the AI here can then start to do things for you within that workflow, within that logic. And then of course you get your output, but your output will vary slightly because the AI agent is doing some work for you. So what we've got here is two different versions, and then we have the next version of this, which is full AI agents. So there will be a trigger that happens. So this is your trigger, and then this goes into the AI agent, and this is your AI agent here, AI agent, and then this can do lots of different things for you. And it will give you lots of different outputs. So the AI agent, your trigger might be here, you get an email. The AI agent then goes, okay, well, what's the buying intent of that person? Let's code them up into a CRM system. We can draft a reply email. We can then send that email. We can then let somebody know on the sales team that we've replied to that. And we also might then say, well, we also want to book a meeting with that person as well. So we send a Calendly link, whatever it might be. So the AI agent starts to do that for you. So we have like 3 different ways of doing this. Now, where I want to educate you on why this is important for you to understand is because if you're buying the technology and you're buying AI agents and you're buying the automation, you're buying workflows, it is most likely that this isn't going to work in your business. This just looks pretty, this looks exciting, but in theory and in practicality, it's not going to work because it won't always be integrated into your wider organization. So this is great. If someone sells you an AI agent that triggers all your emails, but then they only have built that AI agent on Gmail, but you use Microsoft Outlook, how does that is not going to work, right? So that the automation will fail. Or maybe actually the workflow they're building you, they've built it in Airtable as the CRM, but actually you use Folk as your CRM. And so again, we just want to make sure that when you're looking at building or paying someone to build AI agents and automation, we're looking at the entire AI stack and everything else around that. Cool. So layer 6 kind of feeds into this as well. And this is a really, really important part. And this is going to be called your applications and interface. Okay, so I'm going to make it slightly bigger because it's important. So application / interface. I think it's a massive thing that people seem to forget. So your application interface, this is what you actually see as the client, as someone who is, you've bought this automation, you've bought this AI, then what do you see? Because it's very unlikely you're going to want to go into, you're going to want to use your AI agent or workflow inside N8N or Make or Zapier. That doesn't make any sense, right? That's another tool for you to go into. So what you have to think about is how are you actually going to, if you get this output through your automation, what does it look like? Where does it go? Does it go to a Slack channel? Okay, maybe it does. Does it go to, is it a website, chatbot? Is it have you got your own web app that you've built? Have you got your own? You might have not even a web app. You might even just have your own application in house. Okay. So how do you as the buyer and as the customer interact with this AI agent? So an example of this is when if you build a RAG agent. So a RAG agent is effectively it's basically you could build a RAG agent, right, that knows all about your business, right, and knows all about your onboarding processes, and it knows about like internal policies, HR policies, and it's all these documents stored in this one in a massive database, and an AI agent can answer questions on your business. Now that might be great if you're an internal user and you're a bigger company and you just want one a knowledge base for your team to use. But then how does the team then message the AI to ask questions about that knowledge base? Are they using a chatbot? Are they using Slack? Are you building an internal web app or a mobile app? Whatever it might be, there's no point building this amazing AI agent or automation when you actually can't interact with it. So if humans can't access the AI and they're not going to access it easily enough, they won't use it. Even if it's brilliant, even if it does everything, if you don't make it, if it doesn't integrate well into your business for your users and employees to use it, it's going to be a complete waste of money. Okay. So again, some examples of that just for you to think about where this might work with you. If you've got a Slack channel, so a Slack bot that you might have a Slack bot that answers questions. You might have a website chat that can answer customer queries, a dashboard that you build, a Notion page that updates. Again, you have to think about, once we have this outcome, so this outcome is our star, we'll just use that as our outcome. Where does this outcome go? Where is it displayed? And how are people using that data? So this is kind of the UI of that data, okay? And so, again, where I'm trying to educate a lot more people on this is that you can buy an automation, and that's great, and someone will give you a file to download, and they'll go, there you go, there's your automation. But that automation just sits within NA10. You've got a silly automation that sits within NA10 that nobody can use because it's inside NA10, and you're not going to create... It's so inefficient for you as a business to go and create an NA10 account to then access that automation. Or in that case, you might as well just spend the time building it yourself. So where you really need to understand is, are you building AI chatbots and workflows, or are you building the infrastructure that's behind it and taking into account all of these six layers? Are you taking into account these 6 layers when you're thinking about your AI and automation? Now, there is one more part to this, and this is kind of where I sit and the business I run, and where we kind of come in at and where we like to position ourselves at, is the business objectives and ROI. And that is a layer above all of this that we sit in, and every single business should do this, and it sits here above everything, and this is our objectives and ROI. So objectives/ROI. Because if you do not have a clear business strategy around your AI, and you don't have an operating model around this, you have absolutely no idea what you're aiming for. So you can do all of this amazingly well. So all of this here, you can do amazingly well. But if you don't have objectives and how you're measuring that, it is pointless, in my opinion. So what you need to do, there are so many questions in here. So things like, what should be automated, but not just what, it's also why. Like, why should it be automated? Is it because actually that process is taking 2 hours when it should really take an hour? So understanding why that is. So how are you measuring it? So measure the ROI. Okay. The percentages, the numbers, all of those things, how are you measuring that against what you're spending on it? If you're spending 20k on a big AI program to help you close more deals, whatever that looks like, and that program is £20,000, but that AI within a year closes £100,000, well, I'll tell you what, that's pretty good ROI that you've got. So you can measure that. But there are lots of other ways to measure things, obviously, through you can measure trust, you can measure speed, efficiency, quality of work, all of those things. So understand what you're measuring. You also need to think about like this is where I mentioned about the data. Like you need to think about like from like what data needs cleaning. If you have all of this knowledge here, so you have all of this knowledge and data that's really, really important. Typically, when we talk to businesses, what happens is they say, "Oh, well, we actually don't have we don't have any of a training. We don't have any training docs." Okay, so then how are you then? But you want to automate training. So how does that work? How are you? You want to automate this process, but you actually haven't had the process before, and you've got none of that data. So part of this is understanding the data as well. But also, I think it's important to look at like what does an AI powered business look like for you? Like, does it mean that you're replacing humans? I don't know. Maybe that's something you want to do. Okay, is it replacing humans? Is it replacing people? Or do you want your people to be more efficient? So instead of replacing people, you want the humans to adopt the system. Because I can assure you, one of the biggest stumbling blocks is you can implement all of this and you can implement the most amazing AI and automation, but all that happens is nobody adopts it. Even if you do all of this and you've got an amazing application interface and you've got all of this amazing stuff here, but then suddenly you implement it and nobody uses it, and you spend however much money, tens of thousands of dollars or pounds, building this, working with consultants and third parties, but not a single one of them has been spoke to about this new system you're building, and then suddenly it's thrown upon them, they're unlikely to adopt it. So where like we come in, we're up here, we can look at what we do as a business, and then we also look at things like, okay, well, how are we communicating with that team? How are we communicating with the business that this is how we're now running? Okay, this is the new way of doing it, and you almost want to. It's almost a gradual introduction of like this new system or process. So, this kind of, I guess, like the overall thing and why this is important to kind of share all this information, because these objectives, this ROI piece, is one of the biggest overlooked areas when it comes to AI and automation. And obviously, with the channel, I'm trying to educate more people on this idea that if the other layers, if you imagine like the other layers here are the kitchen almost, this is kind of like the architecture layer and the design layer, right? This is the kitchen of the restaurant. You've got all these great bits working together, but actually this is like the layout of the entire restaurant, the design of it, the menu, the customer flow, the profitability, all the data in the back end, all of these key components that are so important. You know, you could have the most amazing kitchen in the world, right? With 5-star chefs and the best ingredients and you know all of that amazing stuff, but actually you're not looking at actually how you're getting return on investment from that kitchen, and that restaurant makes no money. Well, in my opinion, it could be the best restaurant in the world, but if it doesn't make any money, you haven't got a business. So this is really important to understand, right? Is the business layer of things, right? You know, if you can get that right and actually almost kind of start with this. In a way, you want to kind of work it backwards. I would start with your objectives and your ROI and what you're going to measure and what that looks like, and then go into every other piece here. Understand how you're building an interface, okay? You know, this sounds daunting and scary, but realistically, most businesses are going to have some sort of Slack, okay? A Slack channel. You can even do it on WhatsApp. I mean, you can automate things through WhatsApp, Telegram. You can build a relatively straightforward chatbot, something that, you know, people can start to interact with it. And this is mainly going to be for your AI agent side of things. Any automation typically happens in the background, so this automation kind of happens in the back end, and this will be things that, you know, my business can, you know, you typically will get someone that hosts it for you, or they can build it on-prem for you anyway. You might have your own automation, you might own N8N Make or Zapier, and someone comes in and they build it all custom for your business. And that's typically what we do. We don't sell templates, right, or files. We go in and we say, right, okay, what systems have you got? What tools have you got? Are there things that you're willing to change and compromise on? Are there things that are non-negotiable and you have to work with them? Because that's the other thing. If you go into an organization, or if you're a business that has I don't know, a CRM, but your CRM doesn't have an API, how then is it talking to your system, right? If it doesn't allow, if there's no API and no webhook, so you've got neither of these are completely crossed out. I'm trying to be fancy here. So you've got no API, no webhook. How is your system, how is your CRM going to talk to your automation and your AI? If it's unable to communicate together, you won't be able to do anything, right? There's nothing you can do about that. So you then have to make a business decision on, do you then change your entire CRM system to fit an automation, or are there other things you can do to maybe speed up the manual side of this? So most CRMs, you've got to go in as an employee and upload data to it, right? Okay, well, that might be the case if you've got a CRM system that has no API integration or webhook, but your employees need to update the CRM and you don't want to change your CRM. How can you speed up that process? So how can we maybe do some employee training around that? Or is there an automation we can speed up the manual entry of that data? So maybe if you're a sales team, let's just use a recruitment agency for an example, they have a call with a client, but their CRM system doesn't allow API or webhook integration. Maybe what we can do is we can say, well, you know what, to make it really easy, why don't we have an automation that listens into that call that they're having? It can transcribe the call for them, and then it goes through an AI agent that gives them all the key pieces of information to send in an email to them, to the employee, to say, here's what you should update, without looking back at their notes. They can literally just go in, they go, cool, update it straight away. So there's little things like that you can do to try and speed things up, right? But yeah, this is the infrastructure stack, or the kind of the AI stack, as it were, and it covers, just to go over it, it covers infrastructure. We've covered integrations and API keys, your knowledge in your database, the specific AI that you're using for your business, then the orchestration and agents. And this is where I encourage you to kind of be careful about what you're buying and what you're paying for. And then we have obviously the application and the interface of that. So how are your employees and how are you actually interacting with what you've just paid someone to build? And then of course the most important part, which is objectives and ROI. So look, I really hope this video has helped. I hope it's just going to give you a bit of an overview of the, things to think about before jumping into buying AI and automation, and actually going through the process of where your money's being spent and understanding what you're getting out of it. So yeah, look, really, I hope this helps, and I'll see you in the next video.